This story comes from CNN. Trump has pulled Fauci's security details, say sources. By the way, those sources basically are Trump saying, yeah, I pulled his fucking security details.
It's not sources, it's him.
And Trump is just basically like, hey, sometimes when you don't work for the government, you don't get security anymore. Anyway, shouldn't have given him a unilateral pardon because now I can't put him in prison. So now I'm going to hope he gets fucking shot in the street.
I don't think that's wrong. Yeah. I don't think that I think that is clearly the underwritten thing that's said here. I think when he also sort of attacks Fauci for making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I think that plays into that bullshit that these people all believe about Fauci and the vaccine when it comes to COVID and what Fauci did while he was in office. While he wasn't in office, he was an advisor. He didn't have any powers.
No.
He had no powers. Like everybody was always talking about, oh, what the hell did he look at what he did? And you're like,
Fauci's rules.
All he did was just all he did was say to the president that you chose, right? The president that you like, that you chose again. He went to him and said, hey man, we should probably do a couple things.
Yeah.
And then President Trump did a lot of things that Fauci suggested. That shit's on President Trump. He's the one who pulled the trigger. He's the one who said all this shit.
Well, a lot of times too, you'll see people talking about like, oh, when Fauci closed down the government. I just want to remind everybody, the federal government did not close down your state.
No.
There were several states that didn't have any closures at all. I just looked this up again because I was fighting with somebody online the other day. So I was like, you know what? Is my memory accurate? Not every state had any close. So there were some states that had it was business as usual. Some states were only closed for a handful of weeks. Most states were only the longest state that had, any real lockdown was something like 6 or 7 weeks. So this was not something that happened for most of 2020.
Yeah.
It was a blip. It was decided at the state, not federal level.
I want to point out too, that the 6 or 7 week one probably would have worked everywhere and would have done a lot for us.
Yeah.
But you had idiots in other places where Texas is going to stay open. And then people would go down to Texas and come back and get a bunch of fucking people sick.
Exactly.
And you're like, why even have it closed then?
Yep. And isn't it also really something when somebody like Trump is like, well, Fauci made a lot of money. And what that's supposed to do is rile me up. I'm supposed to be mad that Fauci made a lot of money. There's a billionaire, guys, riling you up about somebody else making a lot of money.
Even if that's true.
Which it's not.
Yeah.
It's not true. But I just think it's really something when the billionaires weaponize the idea of follow the money.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, but $1 billion or more goes to you. Shouldn't I follow your money, chuckle fuck?
Yeah.
And they're like, I earned it through the meritocracy of inheritance. God.
Also, not just Fauci lost this. There's a bunch of other people. Bolton and other people lost their, because this is 100% him going after people politically.
Yes.
This is him pulling the security from those people because what he wants to do is he wants to attack them in any way that he can. And if he can make them feel less safe, that's what he's going to do. And so that's what he chose to do. And even Lindsey Graham didn't even like this. Lindsey Graham was like, we need to call an inquiry into this to see whether he did this because he was, where he's trying to persecute people through the office, right? Yeah. He's trying to use the office as a weapon. And Lindsey Graham is like, hey, man, we need to look into that. Lindsey Graham is saying we need to look into that. We're 9 days in, man.
9 days. And just in case anyone's like, it's probably remember that Nancy Pelosi's husband was beaten almost to death with a hammer in an act of politicized violence.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Trump family made fun of them.
Yeah. So if somebody were to say release a bunch of people who have already committed violence from prison,
right?
I mean, it's pretty easy to say, oh, by the way, that guy's out now.
Dude, for real.
I don't know. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I'm not saying it's not going to happen.